those. Simon, we should come to you first, really, because you were gagged before. Is there anything that you want to, you had a burning desire to say that you didn't get a chance to before, or that you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, sorry about the technical problems. I've switched over things now, but yeah, no, I just wanted to say from the day that I'm really struck by the stories of Rebecca and William, and hearing from service users and people. It's been really fantastic. That's really powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose the point we were trying to make in the presentation that Patricia put to you was that it seems that it's really important for this message around integration of mental health and physical health. And I think a lot of the clinicians I speak to in acute hospitals, they kind of get that, don't they? But I think we need to think about, how does that become a routine part of the system? How does that become a kind of, a standard by which, young people that we've heard from today can get that kind of mental health support and access as part of their routine treatment. So I guess that's one of the reasons why we were thinking about doing more research in this area, because actually there isn't a study on art therapy and rheumatology, children with juvenile idiopathic arthritis. We haven't actually got a study like that, and there are so many other physical health conditions and young people struggling with these long-term conditions. So I guess that's just one of the things that, the voices of people that we've heard today have been so fantastic, and it's been really, really tremendous. And it's obviously a big need, and we would really need to think of, how do we now move this into a kind of more standard care, from the great work that the Teapot Trust is doing now.
Yeah. Well, thoughts welcome on that. That's the next step, isn't it? Thank you. Kate, if I can come to you. Welcome to Kate. Kate's the other person from Whale Arts in Wester Hales, and it's lovely to see you, because it's such a long time ago that we met, and now it's all happened. So one thing that I just wanted to ask you to draw out a little bit, for us with Whale, it was unusual in that your staff were in on the art therapy, but that was necessary because, well, this is my take on it, but you correct me if I'm wrong, that your service users really needed that extra hand holding, and they wouldn't have even been there if it wasn't for your staff really sort of taking them by the hand every step of the way. So do you just want to elaborate a little bit on that for people who are interested in partnership, about the extra considerations that really need to come into play when you're dealing with the sorts of children who you support?
Sure. I think for us, it's been a big learning journey, our work with young people with additional support needs. We're a community arts organisation that's based in an area of significant deprivation, and we've come to realise that lots of the families that we work with have all kinds of different health issues. Like, everybody in the family has different health issues, and we also realised there was a real need for some very tailored, very small scale, very creativity led activity for children with additional support needs, but also their siblings. We've seen in other services where young people with additional needs were in a group doing an activity and their siblings were waiting outside, not allowed to join in, and vice versa, and thought, that's not what we want here. So in terms of what we do, we try and offer things at a real spectrum of ability. So everybody takes part at whatever level and in whatever way they feel comfortable. That involves quite a lot of quite detailed and tailored working. So it's about talking to families, it's about talking to the young people, it's about talking to the siblings, finding out what people are really passionate about, and using those as ways in to work with people. So I think the challenge around using art therapy in terms of that kind of accessible arts is really, it's quite, for some people who are very active and sort of enjoy the sensory experience and are non-verbal, it's quite a challenge. And I think it is that thing where two worlds kind of come together. So there's been quite a lot of, as you know, as Kirsten talked about, that thing about actually pen and paper is not the thing that is going to necessarily be inspiring for people. It's much more about something much more sensory. I think the thing that has been really useful and interesting from my kind of perspective, you know, my role is the kind of creative program manager at Wales. So we see, you know, I work with adults and children. It's actually seeing that lasting legacy of being involved in activities. So although at the time of a session, it may appear that somebody's just running around the room and they're not really engaging, there might be a sibling who's really engaged, and there might be a parent who's also kind of engaged, but it feels a little bit of a disconnect whilst it's happening. Actually afterwards, and for some quite long time afterwards, different people within the family, different people who've been part of that, say, oh, actually, that connects with this, or that makes me think about this, or that made me feel kind of hopeful about that. The thing that's really helpful as well is actually supporting parents who have felt, particularly during COVID, extremely isolated and extremely alone, actually, just alone. So having that connection has been really important and really good for them.
I just wanted to pick up one question for Megan that was kind of asked earlier in the day, and I don't think it's really come out yet. So it's this business about the challenges of working online. And in reading one of the reports from another of our art therapists, she was talking about the fact that, you know, children really need to have almost quiet, protected space with no other family members in the room. And then afterwards, parents need to kind of hold and contain that afterwards to kind of respect that period of art making. The implication being that it's really quite critical what happens afterwards, because you might unknowingly be undoing the good work. And I wondered if you might, is that your experience, and can you just elaborate on that a bit for the benefit of parents that are here?
Having a space that's quiet without interruptions really helps hold that as a space for the art making that's protected for them, where they can express themselves, and it's not going to bleed out into the rest of the family, into the rest of the day. So most of our experience was that children had their own area, so it could be even just using a phone, because we can do it on the phones even though the screen's small, so that it's somewhere separate, because there might not be a computer in a room that's separate. We did have children who were on the call who were in like a kitchen area, and there would be people walking in and out sometimes, and that it really did disrupt that child's experience quite a lot, in a way that they would just become distracted and wander off. And it's quite hard, you know, to compete with someone physically being there and you're just on a screen. If you're speaking about a child who's maybe only 6 years old, it's quite hard to hold their attention in that way. So it was really important that we then thought about where is the child going to be when they're doing their art therapy. I think afterwards, as part of the art packs that we sent out, we had a folder, and at the end of each session, we also observed them putting their artwork away in the folder. So it became part of the session at the end that it'd be, now shall we all pack our art materials up and we'll put them away in the folder. So then that became a little container that the child could keep. They didn't have to open it and show other people as well. So it was definitely something that we had to think about. The artworks weren't just lying around the house for people to pick up and not know how important they might be to that child if it's just left somewhere. So yeah, I think having a space was really important to hold the artworks, and that parents knew where that was, and that maybe that was something that was almost private. It was a special place that the child could decide whether they shared or not.
Good, thank you. Thank you. Shall we come to Colette now? Do you want to unmute yourself and come in, Colette?
Hello.
Hello.
Hiya. Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I've just got a question for Patricia and Simon, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I've kind of scribbled a few notes, so correct me if I've kind of got them wrong. But it's the best practice in art therapy. Now I support a child who has cerebral palsy, and I'm trying to encourage her to have more of a voice in, taking more of a responsibility, and like understanding her condition more. And I know Patricia was talking about encouraging the children to talk more and have those conversations. But then listening to what William was saying, that he didn't kind of like to talk too much about his condition, which I completely understand him, because it can be too overwhelming sometimes and kind of too much. And I'm just wondering, like, how kind of like if they kind of encourage in the group sessions, if they encourage the kids to kind of open up more, or just kind of wait until they're ready, how you kind of overcome these issues if the kids feel a bit kind of anxious and overwhelmed in these group sessions.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Colette. And yeah, and I guess we've heard from Rebecca about her individual experience as well, how that was kind of very much tailored towards her needs. And when we were talking about the group work, there is a structure to it, and I guess there are parts of the sessions which are a bit focused on themes, around that young person's experience or their strengths or their goals. So we do kind of introduce those things. But there's also some free art making time in the sessions as well, and there's a break. So it's kind of, I suppose, during the sessions there's a sort of pacing, so that there are kind of breaks and gaps and changes of activity, just to kind of help the young people in the group.
Okay.
And then the stuff with the parents as well. You've heard about the kind of support and conversations that happened with parents. What we're wanting to sort of design into the group is that's becomes a little bit more structured, and so the kind of parents are on and carers are on board from the beginning of the group, and kind of have information about it. So there would be advice and guidance, a bit like you've been hearing from Megan around, the kind of things that would be helpful for parents. So yeah, I take your point, Colette. I think going at the child's pace is really important.
Yeah.
And having the conversations when you can have them, but also respecting when it's not the right time as well. So I think it is a real challenge. It's a difficult one, and hopefully we're going to do some more work in the group, evaluating the group. And one of the things that we mentioned in our evaluation was acceptability. So we want to do a bit more asking questions and qualitative research around how acceptable it is and what people's experience are in terms of the young people and the parents. So we're going to look at that a bit more closely, actually, Colette.
Laura, sorry to spring this on you, but do you want to come in, Laura? Because it would be really helpful to hear from you. I mean, just how you found the day and how this is 10 years on, seeing where we are and all the contributions.
I was saying at lunchtime, I cannot believe it, from starting off, just thinking this connection between doing well with your physical health, you need mental health support, is so important. The research is so important. Poor Simon had his ear bashed on the phone about 5 years ago saying, nobody's doing this, you've got to do this. So yeah, it's actually quite emotional seeing it all happen, what we've achieved. Really remembering as a parent, what a big job you take on when you have a child who has additional needs. I mean, whatever your definition of normal is, you're chasing pharmacists, you're chasing physio, you're doing all these extra things that parents shouldn't have to do. And so it's, there's so much whizzing around my head. And I think the message from Teapot Trust about art and creativity, also, we've just got to keep bashing on with that message. I'm really intrigued that many people in business boast about their marathon running, they do triathlons, but nobody boasts about sitting, taking time to do art. And I think that is one of the things that we are starting that conversation about, how important it is to be able to be fulfilled, get in flow, and just do something where you forget all your troubles and you've got something different to show. And sorry, I'm rambling because my exploding with all the excitement of it. The other thing that I felt over the question that Simon's just responded to, children who have JIA, other long-term conditions, do get fed up talking about it, being prodded about it. And actually sometimes attending art therapy is the one time you can be an artist, you can be whoever you want to be, and to not talk about your condition. When parents meet, they talk over your head. How's your child? Oh, they're talking about me again. How are you? Is such a loaded question, and yet it's just part of British psyche to say, how are you? So congratulations everybody, particularly our art therapists. You are doing amazing work with everybody. The research that we have, you can see Simon's paper and other research. Kirsty, who's here, has also written a paper with Emily. It's all there on our website, so do look them up. We are starting this journey to make people realise that when you've got a physical health condition, you need support mentally too. So yeah, congratulations everybody. Well done the office team for putting the conference together. You know, I think everybody here, we should do a little round of applause for everybody who's pulled has spoken and for the behind the scenes taking all the bookings. So well done Team Teapot in every respect. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just noticing the final questions as well. I mean, it is just wonderful to hear the young voices. We spoke about that before, but you know, that's what really makes people sit up and listen, is people talking about their lived experience and how we can really help to impact change in their lives for the better. I think I'm going to stop there because it's 25 past now. Thank you, Laura. Liz, do you want to come in and wrap up?
I hope everyone's got a really good idea of the scope of what we do. We've talked about, you know, the power of art therapy and the examples we've heard today and the young voices. So hopefully everyone's got a good idea of the scope. And I feel that for all charities going forward, having come through COVID as we have successfully done so far, that it's young voices, the voices of the people that we help, have to be at the centre of everything we do. And I know all of Sarah's plans is all about making that centre stage and helping to shape our services going forward. And I think the other thing for all charities is that the future is collaboration and partnership working. And you've heard a lot about that today. Lots of really good stories about pilot studies. We just tried this out. We didn't know it was going to work. We had a go. Some things worked, some things didn't. It's all about learning, making connections, collaborations and partnerships. I really see that as the way forward for this charity. So, you know, hopefully everybody that's been here today will come along for the ride with us in some way. We feel there's a really bright future. There's just so much that we want to do. There's so much that could be done, so much that should be done. So, you know, I hope people will work with us as we go forward. So